Hello everyone and welcome to this week's track guide and lap tutorial for the GT3 Sprint Series here at Watkins Glen for week 2. We're going to run up to turn 1. You want to be aiming and looking at these boards on the outside as your braking point. Main thing here is the exit of turn 1 is so crucial for anything, be it lap time in qualifying or any sort of having a run up to the bus stop. This corner is super important, so you've got to maximise the entry speed on the way in. So for this, what I'd recommend, over to the left hand side, see where the tarmac here is a bit more extended before the grass comes back in. So between here and the 200 board, around this point, this is where you want to start picking out your braking zone. And what you want to do is you want to do a slow build up of brake pressure. Don't come into here and stamp on the brakes, going really deep past the 200 board. Just be nice and gentle on the brakes. Just build it up nice and soft. See 70%, 60% brake pressure. And this just allows you then just to roll an extra bit of speed into the corner to then help you on the exit. If you go into here really late on the brakes, you can never get on the power early enough in the actual corner itself of turn 1, and then you get an awful run up the hill. So the best thing to do here is just to back the braking off. Even if you have to go in a little bit earlier, you can brake a bit earlier than a 200 board if you want to. But the main thing is just rolling the speed in at a nice progressive rate. No stopping and starting the car. So just after the 100 board, close towards the ends of these railings here on the outside, this way you want to start thinking about actually bringing it over to the inside and turning in point. And then just slowly release the brake pressure. Just trail brake it in. And the main key for this part is you want to be aiming to get your right hand side of the car, or your wheels should we say, into this part of the curb here. Not actually hitting the top part, because if you hit this, the car will bounce off. But you want to almost use this to hook the car in to give you the best exit possible. And what you want to do with this point, as soon as your car's into this part of the corner, into the curb, you can just be really aggressive on power. With that, you can 100% power the exit and use all the runoff on the outside, what is allowed, up to the off track without actually getting the off track. If you go into here, get on the power really early, and you see yourself getting the off track on the outside, it's because you've just not rolled enough initial speed in, so then you have to carry more speed on the exit. So best way of that is just, again, 200 board, nice and soft. Even if you go up 300 board, just roll it into turn 1, and your main key is always to get onto this curb. So play it again. Control brake it all the way in, and as soon as you're into the corner, when you're actually driving, you can actually feel the car grip up here quite nicely. At this point here, you just bang the throttle, 100%, hold the same lock, not having to go anymore, and this should just allow you then to run over the top of this curb, and your car should be just in line with the this white line here. As soon as your right wheels are over the curb itself, that is when you get the off track. So you're using this as your reference point here in front of you. If you're getting the off track at this point here, if you're a bit over, normally because you've just been too aggressive on power and you've just gone in too hard if you're bouncing out here. But the off track is just with this line here, 100% throttle. That will allow you to have a huge run up the hill. Just slowly bring it back across. You can just follow this over here to the outside. There's no real problem with doing that. Either way it works. Up through the S's. Be nice and smooth with the steering input all the way through here. Rev all the way out. For the bus stop, obviously, again, looking off at Watkins, it's quite easy to label out all the markings. With the Audi especially, it was quite tricky with the bounce. Some cars are better in the bus stop than others. You'll see that in the actual week itself, but for this lap, the Audi itself, it was quite tricky on the way in. So for this, with a car like the Audi, even the NSX in a way, kind of has to do this as well. You only use the 300 board, so where this little marking in the Armco is, at this point here, this is your main reference point. From here to, again, same as the exit of turn 1 with a runoff, you have this little bit of an extra part of the white line what sticks out. From the 300 board all the way to this point, this is your main braking and turning in point into the entry of the bus stop. Super crucial, but you turn in early and get as close to the Armco on the inside here as possible. If you go in, miss the turn-in point a little bit and hit the curb in the centre point, the car just bounces in. Especially in the Audi, the car just snapped instantly and you lose so much lap time. Other cars you can get away with it, but it is get as close you can to this Armco. It's recommended. But 200 board. But your main key is here, main point is being really smooth with the brakes. With the braking here, if you start snatching the brake on the way in, you're just going to end up causing a huge balance shift, which then gives you a bit of a snap oversteer into the corner. And then because of that, you then just drift all the way through the entry and then the exit, and you just overheat the tyres. So the key thing here is just be nice and smooth, 200 board, light brake trace, turn in early, downshift once or twice depending on the cars. Normally it's one downshift on the way into the corner and then another downshift on the left in the second part of the bus stop. Best way, in my opinion, to settle the car in the direction change. But you see, like, we're not very heavy on the brakes, just slow rolling it in. But as you can see, if I go forward a few frames, we are literally like, you're aiming for the fence itself. You got to get the car as far over to the right as possible here. You see, like, there's like no room at all. With this allows the car to just jump over it, do one bounce, and you can straight away turn into the left. You can imagine if you hit the curb here, the car's going to bounce a bit more. It then makes the next left tighter. So you just got to make sure that you're all the way over to the right hand side. So I'll play that in full. You'll see smooth braking, smooth steering over the first curb into the left curb. With the left curb itself, you want to try and just aim for as straight as possible over it. Trying to go for this part here. You can get the off track obviously if you go into the grass here, but if you're just aiming for this like, extra little bit of tarmac here where the curb ends, this is fine. Again, same as the previous curb. Take as much as possible over here. You see, like we're almost in the grass itself. But this allows you then just to rotate the car for free. You don't have to crank extra steering lock in. You've thrown a lot more speed into doing this. And what this allows you then is set up the next left as well before the final right in the bus stop to complete the whole sequence. But you want to be back on power now, building it up, then 100% just before you get to this curb, over the curb, and then you want to be over this curb as well. Recommendation with this one, don't try and be greedy and take too much grass. If you touch the grass here, it does just snap the car and get loose very easily. Especially if you do it quite late into the corner, so at this point where my mouse is now, if you try and get the grass here, the car has a huge snap. And the problem is, if you have any sort of snaps or slides through the bus stop itself, the carousel after this is just, you're always fighting the rear, and you just can never cool the tyres down. Especially later on into the race, that is very, very key to keep the tyres in check. Just no sliding and moving the car around through the bus stop. Over the curb itself, as you see, for this reference for me, I do what I was saying, just a little bit, not really using the grass, just right on the limit of the curb. And which allows you then to come off the curb, and you're already steering into the carousel itself. And you just want to follow this like almost line all the way around the corner. If you bounce off the curb here, the problem is you end up too far wide, and you have to put too much steering lock in, you have to slow the car down too much. So into the carousel, well, as I call it, the carousel, you see we're already, as soon as you come off the curb itself, we start lifting off. So as soon as we've actually settled the car, so we go with this, as soon as we settle the car, so now in a straight line, all the bouncing's happened, lift off, and just slowly turn in, lift off now fully, and we want to just follow this in and try and late apex this corner. Bit of trail braking in just to help the car bounce into the corner, and your main throttle pickup point is lucky enough quite easy to find, which is the escape road here for where the Armco comes away. This point here is like the most perfect place to start putting the power back in. So as soon as I get to this point here, start building the power up, just slowly build it up then 100% just before and around this like Marshall here. If you're 100% throttle now, you just understeer too far wide and get the off track. So you just be a bit more patient than you think. Follow all the way around to this Armco. You can run it all the way out here and come back across, because obviously it's quite easy to get the off track here on the outside if you go on the throttle too early. Into the next section, pretty tricky braking zone. It's quite misleading. You actually need to go in quite aggressive initially, so you want to try and aim and brake for just before where this like gridding or grate is here on the outside. Pretty aggressive on initial turning as well. You've got to go into the corner quite early just to hook the camera the way the corner is. If you go in and miss the apex a little bit earlier, if you end up a little like half a car width to a car width wide here, you end up having to put an extra 10-20 degree steering lock in, and you can never really get the exit of the actual corner, and you lose so much time and you put so much more load into a tyre. So it's always, I'd recommend it just, even if you need to, similar to turn 1, just back it up if you need to, just to maximise, get it into the corner early, roll it around next to the curb all the way around the actual corner itself, instead of going in and trying to beat it off. Trail brake it in. Again, the peak pressure wasn't very high, 50-60%. Trail brake it all the way in, see we're down 2 gears. And we're just trying to follow this line next to the curb all the way around the corner. Then, lucky enough, we've been quite cold this week. You can actually get on power quite early. So you want to bounce the power about 80% till the midpoint. So you see where the curve here actually, it goes straight, then curves again, curves, straight, curves. This point, from here, 100%, and you can just run it out then all the way. With the actual runoff curve itself here, if I go to chase, you either need to be fully over it and cut back on at this point, which is sometimes the off track unfortunately, or you want to use like the little, like just a minimal part of it. If you half and half it, there's like a bump here, you hit this, you lose like 2-3 thousand for free up to the hairpin. So, and also it's just annoying when you hit it as well. So just remember, either fully or a little bit, don't try and half it. But normally this, you know when this is going to happen at this point. If you're a little bit wider here, just commit to using all of it. If you're a little bit safer, you don't need to run all the risk and run it all the way out. On to the next hairpin. Quite a tricky corner as well, due to there's actually a few ways you can approach this with different lines. You can either go in quite aggressive, really V the corner off. You can go in quite like normal into the middle, roll it around, then get the exit. Or park it really aggressive on the inside, wait, and then power on the exit. Normally the tighter option is better for tyres, obviously, but when it being a bit colder in the sprint races, you can be a bit more aggressive on the line into here. Lucky enough, again, 200 board, easily marked out for us for our braking point. Little lift off, then hit into the brakes. Similar to pretty much all the corners on this track. Don't want to be really aggressive on the brakes, just 60-70% brake pressure, just roll into it. Breaking a bit of a straight line. And for me, I try and aim for the car to be just below this like darker patch of tarmac. So pretty central. Just because then it allows you then to roll a bit more speed into the corner. You stop the car enough so when you rotate it, you can be 100% on the power on the exit and get a huge run up the hill after this. If you go into here and you have to get on and off the power, if you have to correct the steering a little bit, you just lose so much time because it's uphill. You've got to focus fully on the exit here. So trail brake it on the way in. As you see, as I was saying, pretty central. Just you can go out a little bit to like where this tarmac is here, or you can go tyre. Driver preference, car preference, but to me the middle always works the best. Trail braking in, and as soon as I actually pass the tarmac patch here on the outside, I'm off the brakes, let the car roll a little bit, and then straight away back on the power. And it's pretty aggressive. Just hold the lock up and be really aggressive on the steering and use all the runoff on the exit. If I play this in full speed, you'll see what I mean. Trail brake it in, park the car a little bit, then be really aggressive on power and use all the run on the exit. Come up into the last sector of the lap now. Again, lucky enough it's labelled out for us. You're aiming for between the 200 and the 100 board. For me on this lap, I actually go in a bit too aggressive, I'd probably say. In the actual race itself, you probably want to go in a little bit softer than this just to keep the front alive. It's a very easy corner to overwork the front tyres and overheat them. And the problem is, if you do this, it just makes the last 2 corners of the lap really tricky once you've pumped a load of tyre into them, like load of tyre pressure into them. So just be a bit more progressive in the race itself. On a hot lap, you can really send it into and gain a lot of time on entry. But in the race, I would recommend backing it up a little bit. But braking wise, you see, just after the 200 board, aggressive on the brakes into here, 100 meter board, start turning, and you want to really go at this corner really early. Start slowly trail braking off, but as soon as you're like into the corner itself, so my right wheels will be like touching the curb here, at this point now, you want to be back on the power straight away. Due to the amount of runoff we have on the exit, you want to use as much as you can. Use all the runoff out here. And with this, you've carried a low speed in, bring the car straight over to the right hand side, up into the next corner. If you're bouncing over here and you're like a little bit delayed coming over to the right, it just makes the left really awkward. You've got to try and widen the entry up to the next corner as much as possible. So bring it straight over to the right. As soon as the car's in a straight line, brake, pretty soft, 40%, down 1 gear, and just go at the corner. Miss it initially on the way in, and then mid-corner you want to be hooking the inside like on the orange line. And you see it already on power, bouncing the power all the way through the corner, all the way through. And almost as soon as you come away from the curb itself, that's when you want to pick up the 100% power. If you try and go on 100% power here, the car just goes straight, or you can get unfortunate with how the car reacts next to the curb. There's like a bit of a bump on the exit. If you get that, the car then gets a bit of a wiggle on the exit, you lose so much time to the final corner. So in full speed, you'll see, bring it straight over to the right, smooth braking, 1 gear down, arc it off, balance the power, and you use all the runoff here on the exit. Off track is obviously if you use the grass. Key thing about corner as well, if you're struggling with like exits with like traction, just be a bit more progressive on power. If you're seeing the TC light kicking in, or you feel like you're losing a bit on the rear, you're just being a bit aggressive on exit. So just if you need to just bounce it an extra quarter of a second, just bounce the power 80-85%, and you should be fine. Into the final 2 corners. Obviously, try and use as much of this on the outside as possible. 100 board here. At this point, lift off into the corner itself, and then just balance the power like 20-30% just to keep the car rotating with the diff. And you want to be basically touching the actual yellow line next to the curb, and then back on the 100% power. You can lift off a little bit earlier. You can use a bit of trail brake into it. It is kind of driver preference. People send it in a lot more, lift off more. People roll off now and then fully send it through the corner. Kind of up to you. Just keep in mind, the more aggressive you are on power through here, like early into the corner. So if you're 100% power way before the curb, you will use the right rear more. So just keep that in mind. Qualifying, you can probably get away with it, but in the race, I wouldn't recommend it. Just throw a bit more speed into the corner. Lift off once you're into the corner. Then slowly build up the power. Runoff wise, this is probably the maximum you're going to get away with in the race. Left wheel's on the curb itself. And straight away with steering, you want to be aiming to bring it back over here to the left hand side. Just because it's quite a short run from here to the final corner, you can lose track of it and actually end up coming back off the curb at this point here, and you're already going into the next corner. So you need to get straight away back over to the left hand side to maximise the entry to the final corner. As you can see, we're pretty aggressive, and as soon as we come off the curb and we land, so now, brake ever so softly, and just trail brake it in. And as soon as you get your car across into the pit lane entry point here, so like the inside of the line, again, aggressive on the power at 70-75% up to this curb. And as soon as you're into the curb, you feel the car actually just like bite. And as soon as the car bites, 100% power, and with this, gives you a huge run out of the final corner. And that is a lap for this week at Watkins Glen.